Welcome into Rogue Football. I'm your host, Jordan Lugo. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We are getting into our February 2024 NFL mock draft. Going to be the first 2-round mock draft here on the channel. Really appreciate y'all being here. If you've been enjoying the content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Almost 90% of our viewers are unsubscribed. So if you could, please subscribe. Really appreciate y'all. Let's go ahead and dive into round 1 of this mock draft. I'm going to try to fly through all these picks, all 64 picks in the first 2 rounds of this mock draft that I ran over on NFL Mock Draft Database. Without further ado, let's dive into it. We did have a trade to start this mock draft. Have the Washington Commanders trading up to 1 overall with the Chicago Bears. They want to land Caleb Williams. You just saw the report yesterday that the belief around the league is, according to Adam Schefter, that Caleb Williams is going to be the pick at 1. I think obviously when you see these types of reports come out, they're coming out for a reason. I think the Bears are trying to tell the Washington Commanders, who just picked up Cliff Kingsbury as their offensive coordinator, if you want Caleb Williams, you got to come up to get him. So I think that's exactly what that was all about. I have these two teams trading. The Washington Commanders get up to 1 overall to take Caleb Williams. The Chicago Bears at 2 overall take Drake May, their quarterback of the future. Ryan Poles not scared away from the North Carolina helmet. May is a fantastic quarterback prospect, as is Caleb Williams. These guys, if you want a quarterback, they're the top 2 options in the class by far, in my opinion. No, they're not perfect, but no quarterback prospect ever is. The bottom line is they give you unbelievably high ceilings. And I think that that's what you're drafting for at the top of the draft. At 3 overall, the New England Patriots also need a quarterback. So we have them taking Jaden Daniels out of LSU, another really impressive quarterback prospect. For me, not in the same tier. He's older. It took longer for him to develop, but unbelievable athleticism he brings to the table, and a guy that absolutely has a fantastic deep ball as well. So someone I think you can build around and try to build your offense around. Obviously, you're going to want to get him to add some mass to the frame there, but overall, another impressive quarterback prospect. At 4 overall, the Arizona Cardinals, they have their quarterback of the future, at least the present, in Kyler Murray. So they take wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State, the best prospect in this class for me, a guy that can rapidly change your trajectory on the offensive side of the ball. 3-level threat, big-time size, big-time athleticism, a technician as well with great ball skills. Marvin Harrison Jr., the son of Marvin Harrison Sr., who obviously did it at a high level in the NFL for a long time. MHJ has an even better profile than his father did. At 5 overall, the Los Angeles Chargers, they could go in a lot of different directions here. I have them taking Joe Alt, the top tackle in the class, for my money, a guy that is going to be incredibly steady. You now have 2 stalwart tackles on your offensive line if you're the Los Angeles Chargers, and 2 guys to protect the investment, and Justin Herbert on the edges there. Big time get for them at 5 overall. New York Giants at 6 overall. Wide receiver Rome Odunze, he's a guy that brings a different skill set to the table than any of the receivers they currently have. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, a really good route runner, has deceptive long speed as well. Somebody who I think is very nuanced at the position. He is my wide receiver 3, but I think he suits what they need a little bit more than my wide receiver 2, who we'll see in just a minute. At 7 overall, Tennessee Titans, Olu Fashanu drops into their lap here. They are desperate for offensive line help. Olu Fashanu is the pick for them. Unbelievable upside there. Atlanta at 8 overall, they could go in a lot of different directions. They need quarterback. They need help on the defensive side of the ball, especially on the edge. But wide receiver Malik Neighbors is too good to pass up. You pair him with Drake London. I have them trading in this mock offseason with the Chicago Bears for Justin Fields. Obviously, you saw the Bears take Drake May at 2 overall here. So I have them landing Justin Fields in the offseason, giving him another weapon to throw the football to. I think that would be a big-time get for the Falcons at 8 overall. At 9, I have the Chicago Bears, their second pick here, Jared Verse out of Florida State University. Monsters of the Midway, bringing it back. You've got Montez Sweat, you've got Jared Verse, 2 big, explosive defensive ends that can really push the pocket and make it difficult for quarterbacks to succeed against your defense. At 10 overall, New York Jets offensive tackle Amarius Mims. For my money, he is the next most talented guy at offensive tackle in this class. You haven't seen him play a lot of football, dealt with some nagging injuries, but a guy who, when he gets to the combine, I think he is going to solidify himself as a early to mid first round pick. Minnesota, linebacker, edge player, Dallas Turner out of Alabama. Dallas Turner has a varied skill set, a multiple skill set. He's a budding pass rusher, but a guy who already sets the edge really well against the run, is really fluid dropping into coverage, is well-versed when it comes to running schemes and games up front. I think with what they do on the defensive side of the ball, that Dallas Turner makes a ton of sense. At 12 overall, maybe one of the first big surprises here, quarterback Bo Nix to the Denver Broncos. Look, I think Bo Nix is a guy that is going to remind Sean Payton a little bit of Drew Brees. Bo Nix has accuracy. He is a very good athlete, a much better athlete than Drew Brees was, has a little better size than Drew Brees brought to the table, but somebody who's going to get the ball out on time, accurately, and can also create a little bit with his legs and his playmaking ability as a passer. So I think that the Broncos are going to be ready to move on from Russell Wilson whenever they can from a monetary standpoint, and that Bo Nix is going to allow them to do that. Las Vegas, another quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. This guy screams Raider to me when I think about Antonio Pierce, the toughness, the physicality, the love for the game that organization is trying to instill throughout their program now with Antonio Pierce. I think J.J. McCarthy is tough. He is a leader. He has very good talent. I mean, this is a guy that is a talented quarterback, just needs more development. I think the Raiders are probably going to be a run-first organization now. And I think J.J. McCarthy can kind of develop there, maybe not necessarily have to start right away, but somebody who I think embodies what Antonio Pierce is all about as a head coach. And I think that he's going to be going a lot higher in this draft than a lot of folks expect. At 14, the slide for Brock Bowers ends in New Orleans. I just could not keep him on the board still. I mean, this is a guy that, for me, is the second best prospect in this class. Now, at tight end, it becomes difficult because you draft a tight end at the top of the first round, and the value proposition isn't really there from a monetary standpoint because you're already paying him as one of the top tight ends in the league. So for him to really give you value there, he has to be one of the top tight ends in the league. And it's difficult for young tight ends to do that oftentimes. But I do believe Brock Bowers is going to come into the league, immediately be one of the best receiving threats at the position with his athleticism, his skills as a receiver, and also be able to contribute as a space blocker and sometimes as an inline blocker. You're not going to want him to be doing that consistently, but I do think he can get the job done there. 15 overall, Indianapolis Colts, cornerback Terrion Arnold. This one was too easy. He is a Colt type of player, right? He has unbelievable athleticism. He is very aggressive. The Colts still need more help at corner, even though that they did hit on some guys last year. I think Terrion Arnold can help them out a lot. 16 overall, I have the Seattle Seahawks taking defensive lineman, interior defensive lineman, Johnny Newton. Newton is a special interior pass rusher. He should not be available on the board at 16 overall, in my opinion. He is a top 10 prospect for me, but because he's not going to have the best arm length, not going to be the biggest guy out there, I think that there's a possibility he could slide to the mid-teens here and be an excellent pickup for the Seahawks. He is going to help you against the run. He's going to help you against the pass. He is a fantastic interior defensive line prospect. At 17 overall, I think the way things are trending for the Jaguars this offseason, they may not be able to keep Calvin Ridley. They may not be able to land any of the other top free agent wide receivers either. When you look at those situations, I think they're going to be going wide receiver, whether it's in the first or second round. And I think Keon Coleman makes a ton of sense for them because he's a big-bodied guy. He's young. He is athletic. He's going to test well, in my opinion. And he's a guy that catches the football at a high clip. The Jaguars have had issues with drops. They've had issues with coming down with contested catches. Keon Coleman, he needs to develop as a pure route runner. But from a talent standpoint, not a lot of guys that get it done better than Keon Coleman. I think that he would make sense for the Jaguars and be someone Trent Baalke and company would very much like. 18 overall, Cincinnati, defensive lineman Byron Murphy. You just had Johnny Newton come off the board. Now Byron Murphy, who is in a similar mold, a guy who, unbelievable pass rusher from the interior, creates penetration, knifes into the backfield, but can also hold up at the point. He's a little bit bigger than Johnny Newton, but Byron Murphy for me comes off the board second. He's just not quite as consistent or refined as Newton as an interior defensive lineman, but definitely helps that Cincinnati Bengals defensive front, who could potentially be losing DJ Reader in free agency. 19 overall, Los Angeles Rams, defensive end, edge player. Latu out of UCLA. He does not have to move far to get over to the LA Rams, right, from UCLA. A guy that, obviously doesn't have the greatest arm length. It's subpar. It's under 33 inches. A guy that had to medically retire a few seasons back. but he's been healthy for the last 2 years. He's a technician. The Rams, they draft good football players. Latu is a damn good football player. I like the fit a lot. At 20 overall, the Pittsburgh Steelers pair up Kool-Aid McKinstry with Joey Porter Jr., two really good long corners on the outside. They have a nice foundation there now for a long time moving forward. And Kool-Aid has the toughness, the patience, the physicality. He plays like a Steeler, and I think it's a really good fit there. At 21 overall, the other JPJ, Jackson Powers-Johnson, he comes off the board to the Miami Dolphins, who have a lot of interior offensive line free agents. They're going to need to restock on the interior. None better than JPJ in this class, who I do believe can play guard, although he excelled at center for the Oregon Ducks in 2023. At 22 overall, cornerback Nate Wiggins out of Clemson to the Philadelphia Eagles. Nate Wiggins is probably the best pure cover corner in this class with his size, his length, his athletic profile, quick feet, fluid hips. He's got it all, can contest the catch at the catch point. Nate Wiggins is a guy that I think that the Philadelphia Eagles could really use at this point. They've been getting old in their cornerback room. Nate Wiggins comes in and helps out in a big way. At 23 overall, cornerback Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo goes to the Houston Texans. The Texans, they have Derek Stingley. Steven Nelson played well for them this year. He is a free agent. We'll see how it all plays out there. But I think pairing up Quinyon Mitchell with Derek Stingley makes a ton of sense for them. At 24, Dallas takes offensive lineman Talise Fuaga. Whether they're playing him at right tackle, guard, it does not matter. A guy that's going to come in, improve their overall physicality, help them continue to be one of those teams that can really move the ball with the run and also protect your quarterback. Talise Fuaga makes a lot of sense for them. At 25, Green Bay, offensive tackle, J.C. Latham. This is a guy that kind of screams Green Bay Packer in terms of he's young, he's physical, he's got great athleticism for his size, and he's kind of a ball of clay still. I think you can definitely mold him into what you want as an offensive tackle, a guy that I think has been nitpicked to death a little bit too much. At 26 overall, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, linebacker Chop Robinson. He is an edge rusher, a guy that I think could learn a lot from Shaquille Barrett, could kind of come in and add some juice to that Tampa Bay pass rush. Obviously, they've added some good young players, but adding one more guy who can really bend the edge, get around offensive tackles at a high level, Chop Robinson to the Buccaneers at 26. Arizona at 27 overall, they take Cooper DeJean. Maybe a little bit of a fall for him from where most people view Cooper DeJean, but for me, this is right in the correct range for him. He's a guy that, while he has unbelievable explosiveness and speed and he's physical, doesn't necessarily scream man corner, because I think you do see some tight hips. I don't think he has the most fluid change of direction, but he's a guy that you pair him with what you already did up in the draft with Marvin Harrison Jr. Now you have a versatile defensive back who I definitely think can play some outside corner for you in zone, can play some nickel, can play some safety, do a lot of different things in that defense over for Arizona. I really like the fit there. At 28 overall, the Buffalo Bills, they might be needing some wide receiver talent, right? Gabe Davis is a free agent. You also don't know the situation exactly with Stephon Diggs, how that relationship is going. Brian Thomas Jr., super talented wide receiver out of LSU. He has all the talent you could want in a wide receiver in terms of physical ability. 6'4", over 200 pounds, unbelievable catch radius. He's got great speed, but he's a little unrefined. There's definitely some rawness to his game still. A guy that can certainly end up looking like one of the steals of the draft, or a guy that might not quite hit his ceiling if he does not improve his route running ability, his ability to attack the football at all areas of the field. At 29 overall, Detroit, they take defensive lineman Darius Robinson out of Missouri, one of the biggest risers in the draft, in my opinion, somebody who I had a second round grade on prior to the Senior Bowl. A lot of folks are catching up now, but Darius Robinson screams Detroit Lion to me. They can use help on their defensive front. He's a versatile defensive lineman who plays extremely physical, plays extremely hard, but he's got long arms. He's athletic. He can stop the run. He can play outside for you. He can play inside. Love what Darius Robinson brings to the Detroit Lions. At 30 overall, wide receiver Troy Franklin to the Baltimore Ravens. I don't think they're done adding pieces to the receiver room. Troy Franklin is tall. He's got great length. He's a speedster and a guy that I think will add even more dynamic playmaking ability to that Baltimore Ravens offense. Kansas City, wide receiver Adonai Mitchell. The Chiefs draft good players. And Adonai Mitchell is a very good football player. He's a lot higher than this on my board, but from what I've been seeing around the draft world, I don't think that Adonai Mitchell is going to go super high in the first round. But the Kansas City Chiefs, this is a guy who can take the top off the defense, 3-level threat, great separator, great hands. I think he fits perfectly with what they need moving forward to continue to help Patrick Mahomes. San Francisco, offensive line, Troy Fautanu out of Washington. This is a guy that I have a little bit higher on my board than this, but someone who I think would be fantastic to get in there and learn from. Trent Williams, try to improve that offensive line early. Trent Williams is a stalwart. He is up there in age. The rest of the offensive line, not quite as impressive. So I really like that fit for them. And that is the end of round 1. Looking at round 2 of this mock draft. Carolina at 33 overall, Ladd McConkey. They get Bryce Young, the separator that he needs, somebody that can really create separation with his route running and come down with the football, somebody who will make it a little bit easier for Bryce Young to thrive back there. At 34, another smaller wide receiver, Roman Wilson, comes off the board in New England. This guy, he's small, but he does not play small. He's faster than pretty much everybody on the field, but he's also tougher than pretty much everyone on the field. Great hands, great toughness. He's scrappy. He plays like a Patriot, in my opinion. Arizona, offensive lineman Graham Barton. This is a guy that's played tackle, played center, projects to be able to play guard as well at the next level. I don't really see him playing outside due to the arm length issues, but guard, center, whatever it may be, I think he helps out the Arizona Cardinals offensive line a ton. At 36 overall, the Washington Commanders, defensive end Braylon Trice. This is a guy that is just a lunch pail type of player, a guy that has been mocked in the first round here before. I don't quite see him as a first round talent. Despite a fairly advanced pass rush and a good run defender, I just don't think Braylon Trice has the elite athleticism to go higher than this, but somebody who certainly will be able to come in and contribute at a high level early on in his career out of Washington. Los Angeles Chargers wide receiver Xavier Worthy. They were looking for some juice last year in the first round. They really get that juice here at 37 overall with Xavier Worthy, someone who is a really young prospect, can create separation all over the field, maybe the best mover at wide receiver in this class. The Chargers need some youth in their wide receiver room. Xavier Worthy brings youth and juice at a high level. 38 overall, Tennessee Titans. Wide receiver Tez Walker. I'm not as high on Tez Walker as this would indicate, but from what you hear around the league, it sounds like Tez Walker is a guy that has some first round buzz. I don't have him going in the first round here, but I do have him coming off the board in the second round because the bottom line is he does have good size. His tape is better than what he showed at the Senior Bowl, and I think he's going to test really well at the Combine. So we'll see where he lands. Right now I have him going to Tennessee at 38. 39 overall, offensive lineman Jordan Morgan out of Arizona goes to the New York Giants. This is a guy that came in a little bit shorter arms, under 33 inches. Maybe he has to play guard. We'll see where he ends up playing. But the Giants need to continue to improve their offensive line. They need to figure out what's going on the right side at right tackle with Evan Neal, a guy who I loved coming out a few years ago. But I think Jordan Morgan definitely helps out what they have going on up front. 40, Chicago Bears, offensive lineman, probably center, Zach Frazier out of West Virginia. Maybe not going to be as hot of a name because he is coming off the broken leg where he had to have surgery in the season. He was kind of crawling off the field at West Virginia. A really tough kid, a fantastic center prospect, somebody who I have in my top 20 currently, but don't know that he's going to go that high because positional value and, again, the injury he's coming off of. Chicago Bears get an absolute steal with Zach Frazier at 40 overall. 41, cornerback Ennis Rakestraw out of Missouri to the Green Bay Packers. The Packers need help at corner. I think Rakestraw, he has a nice enticing skill set for them at this point in the draft. 42, Minnesota, defensive lineman Chris Jenkins. They go back to the well up front. Chris Jenkins out of Michigan going to Minnesota. I just think he can do a lot of different things for your defensive front. He's going to be a stalwart against the run. He's going to be a guy who I do think has a developing pass rush skill set. So I think that fit is pretty nice there for the Minnesota Vikings. Chicago safety Tyler Nubin, another playmaker, and Chicago has this pick from at 43 from the Atlanta Falcons in that Justin Fields trade we talked about. Nubin is a playmaker. He's a really damn good football player out of Minnesota, somebody who I think can come in. Maybe you pair him long-term with Jaquan Brisker. You have yourself a really nice safety duo. Not sure how much longer Eddie Jackson will be there. At 44 overall, defensive back Mike Sainers still out of Michigan, another Michigan guy off the board. They've been going early and often in this draft. No big surprise there. But another guy who, in my opinion, embodies what the Raiders want to be. Another Michigan man who embodies what the Raiders want to be. He is consistently making plays, whether he's lined outside, whether he's lined at nickel, at safety. Mike Sainristil can do so much for your defense, and I think that the Las Vegas Raiders can absolutely use his skill set and his leadership. At 45 overall, New Orleans, another wide receiver, Jalen Polk. This is a kid who, out of Washington, I think really complements well what Chris Olave brings to the table. You probably moving on from Michael Thomas. I think Jalen Polk has the size, the athleticism to be an excellent complement there for them. At 46 overall, Indianapolis Colts, edge rusher Adisa Isaac out of Penn State. He screams cold as well, just like Terrion Arnold does. So does Adisa Isaac. A budding pass rush skill set, but a guy who brings great athleticism, very good length, and a hot motor to the football field. Adisa Isaac, I think, really screams Indianapolis Colts. New York Giants edge Chris Braswell out of Alabama. Didn't blow me away at the Senior Bowl, but his tape is really good. He's coming on strong. He's a guy that can play the run, can generate pass rush as well. The Giants need more pass rushers. At 48, cornerback Kyrie Jackson out of Oregon goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jackson is a really long, athletic corner who plays the game with a competitive spirit. The Jaguars are a team that I think lacked a little physicality, a little nastiness out there on the football field in 2023. Keon Coleman and Kyrie Jackson bring both of those qualities to your football team. At 49 overall, Cincinnati offensive lineman Kingsley Suamataia out of BYU, a player who I think can play tackle for you, can play guard. They're going to want to continue to upgrade what they have up front, make sure that they have that fortified for Joe Burrow, and he makes a lot of sense in this range to me. At 50, offensive tackle Garrett Greenfield out of South Dakota State, a name that I was put onto by Brett Coleman in his Sleepers video. Greenfield is a big, long, athletic offensive tackle that simply does not allow pressure in pass pro. He's got the perfect build to be a very good pass protector, maybe not ever going to be an elite run blocker, but somebody who can definitely help keep Jalen Hurts upright in 2024 and beyond. At 51, Pittsburgh, offensive tackle Roger Rosengarten out of Washington, somebody who I thought shined at the Senior Bowl and shined throughout most of his career. I think he's going to be a starting tackle in the NFL for a long time, a guy who's underrated right now. I really like his projection. 52, as I mentioned before, the Los Angeles Rams, they just draft good football players. Javon Bullard out of Georgia is a damn good football player who can play some nickel, play some safety for you, really upgrade your secondary. I like the fit there. At 53, Philadelphia, wide receiver Javon Baker out of UCF. I'm not sure how long A.J. Brown is going to be in Philly. It does not seem like there's a great relationship going on there. But even if he is, Javon Baker as a wide receiver 3 for you would be a fantastic fit behind those two. Baker is 6'1", 208, really physical. But the best thing about him, he has the size. He has the explosiveness to go up and get the football and be a competitive contested catch receiver. But he can create separation at the top of his stem. He can really sink his hips. He can plant his feet and go off in the other direction and leave defensive backs in the dust. Love to see it from Javon Baker. I think he would make a lot of sense for the Eagles. At 54, Cleveland, they take a wide receiver. The wide receiver been coming off the board hot and heavy here. Ricky Pearsall out of Florida, another separator, a guy that can get the job done at a high level. He's a little bit bigger than Ladd McConkey, who we talked about already. I think that maybe not quite as dynamic as a separator, but right there with him, and a guy who brings some contested catch ability as well. I think Ricky Pearsall is going to help out the Cleveland Browns a ton. 55 overall, Miami. I told you earlier, they're replacing a lot of that interior offensive line due to free agency. Dominic Pooney, and really solidify things. At 56 overall, Dallas Cowboys take pass rush specialist from the interior, defensive lineman Michael Hall out of Ohio State. This is a guy who I thought shined as a pass rusher throughout his career, did it at the Senior Bowl. You want more juice on the interior, Michael Hall can give it to you. At 57 overall, safety Cameron Kitchens goes from Miami to Tampa, hops across the state. Kitchens is a playmaker, a guy who I thought did a good job at the Senior Bowl as well. You pair him long-term with Antoine Winfield, got a really nice 1-2 punch there. 58 overall, cornerback Kamari Lassiter out of Georgia. Green Bay Packers, they double dip at corner here. I think they need corner help in a big way. At 59 overall, the Houston Texans draft defensive end Marshawn Kneeland out of Western Michigan. Houston Texans, I think they're one of those teams on the rise that knows how to draft well, is going to continue to add good football players. Pairing Marshawn Kneeland with Will Anderson, maybe Grenard if you're able to bring him back. Really nice little edge group there for the Houston Texans. At 60, Buffalo. Defensive lineman Rook Ororo out of Clemson. Hopefully I did not butcher that last name, but this is a guy who brings strength, length, athleticism to your defensive front, a guy that can definitely help you be a more stout defense and give you a little bit of pass rush juice on the interior. I think you saw more of that in 2022 than you did in 2023, but a player I like a lot. 61 overall, Detroit Lions. Gave them Darius Robinson, who absolutely fits the bill as a Detroit Lion, a knee biter, a tough guy. They go get another one. Christian Haynes, offensive lineman out of UConn, going to probably play guard, maybe some center. Looked better at guard, in my opinion, on tape and at the Senior Bowl than he did at center. But this is a guy, only 6'2", but brings great length to the football field, brings toughness. He's able to redirect at a high level at guard. Somebody who I think is going to be a long-time starter in the NFL and makes sense for the Detroit Lions. At 62 overall, Baltimore Ravens, defensive tackle T'Vondre Sweat. If there's a team out there that's going to get the most out of T'Vondre Sweat, I do believe it's the Baltimore Ravens. I don't think he's going to be a 3-down player just because of endurance issues, but somebody who I think when he is on the football field for the Baltimore Ravens, he's going to be making a big impact. At 63 overall, cornerback Renardo Green to the Kansas City Chiefs. And by the way, the Chiefs are listed as the 31st team, which means they lose the Super Bowl. I do not have the Chiefs losing the Super Bowl. I think after the Super Bowl ends, the order of the Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers picks will be flipped, but that's neither here nor there right now. Kansas City, cornerback Renardo Green out of Florida State. You want somebody in the mold of L'Jarius Sneed? Somebody who can come in and play physical, but has excellent fluidity, quick feet, fluid hips, can turn and run. Again, can play physical at the line of scrimmage and throughout the route, who can play the ball in the air, always calm and patient, but can play aggressive when needed. That's Renardo Green, one of the most underrated prospects in this class, along with Garrett Greenfield, who Brett Coleman pointed out on his Sleepers show. I think Renardo Green is right up there with him, and I think Renardo Green's going to be a stud in this league for a long time. At 64 overall, San Francisco wide receiver Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky. This is a guy that a lot of people have compared to Deebo Samuel. You see some of the same traits. Maybe you go get someone who can replace Deebo Samuel when he's not able to play. He's dealt with a lot of little nagging injuries here and there throughout the last several years of his career. Maybe you go get someone who, when you don't have him available, you can plug in Malachi Corley. Maybe he can also potentially be a long-term replacement for Deebo Samuel. We'll see how it plays out. But I think Malachi Corley, a guy who didn't run the full route tree at Western Kentucky, but I think he has the fluidity, the strength, the explosiveness to be able to do just that at the next level and be a really nice weapon for the San Francisco 49ers. That will do it here for our 2-round mock draft here on the Rogue Football Channel. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Y'all have a good one.